Sorry, I don't love you. A phrase I've grown accustomed to. 'Cause with you something isn't wrong, something isn't wrong, something isn't right. I wish you could be happy. Hope this is spoiled by the bottle at the pharmacy. Why does it seem like everybody knows everyone but you? Oh baby,
Hey everyone, welcome to Geekdom is back, and this week I have on Brett Booth to talk all about his current comic book series he's working on, Titans, for DC Comics. And Brett, how are you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm very excited to have you on. You are probably by far the most well-known person I've had on a podcast so far. So
Okay.
It's pretty exciting.
Cool.
So I sort of just want to dive right on in. How did this opportunity for Titans come about? Obviously, you had done Teen Titans for the New 52, and you worked on The Flash a bit after that run on Teen Titans, or a little bit overlapping, I don't recall, but I know it was very close together. So how did you then get put onto this Titans title?
It's actually kind of funny. They had actually asked me to do Aquaman. I was doing Aquaman 50, and I got a call like the day after this list came out that I was doing Aquaman. I was already working on it.
Okay.
And Brian Cunningham called me up, and he asked me to do. They wanted me to do the first 3 issues. They told me that they were doing the Rebirth thing, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do Aquaman, so I wanted to see if I could do some sort of Flash stories that I wanted to do in this Flash series that I didn't get to do. And so the next day, I was talking to him a couple times, and he mentioned that they were bringing Wally back.
Okay.
And so I asked them if we could possibly do some stories with that or something like that, and if I did this Aquaman stuff. And so I actually thought I was drawing Aquaman. So I talked to Dan DiDio, and they told me about the Wally thing. And I was originally supposed to draw some of the actual Rebirth issue.
Okay.
The big Jeff Johns one. But,
right.
Apparently, when they were deciding, so here I am thinking I'm drawing Aquaman for like 3 months.
Right.
And so I asked Brian Cunningham about it, because he's like, well, you need to talk to Dan. You need to talk to Dan. So I'm talking to Dan Abnett, who's writing both the Titans book and the Aquaman book, thinking. So I went talking to Dan DiDio, and then I emailed Brian, and I was like, okay, I'm just finishing up Aquaman 50. When am I going to get the script for Aquaman #1? He's like, oh, you're not doing that. I was like, what? So he's like, oh no, Dan, how do you want to push you on something else? And I was like, oh, great. So I emailed Dan, and that's when Dan was like, oh no, I put you on the Titans book because Wally's on that. I figured you want to draw that.
Nice.
So yeah, so it was a lot. I like the Titans characters a lot, so I was really happy with that, because like Aquaman, the scales drove me up the wall. The scales are very like they're so technical to do,
right?
And to constantly do them, it just is. And I kind of a fast style, so it moves quickly. But when I have to go back and do the scales, it slows everything down to like a crawl. And Aquaman was on all the pages, and Mira was on all the pages. I was like, oh, jeez, it's too much.
Yeah, and was the fact that Dan Abnett was being on both books, did that sort of help you going from thinking you were doing Aquaman to then working with him still on Titans?
Yeah, no, it was, I was like, well, who's writing Titans? Oh, Dan Abnett's writing it. I was like, awesome, because I really enjoyed working with him on Aquaman. He's got a fun style that there's some humor in there that I like, and he has a lot of good action. So it was, since I'd already worked with him before, I knew what to expect. And he knows more about the Titan stuff than I do. He's like a huge fan of the old stuff. So I throw in a thing here or two, here and there, just really like minor little things. Linda, I got tired of drawing her because I didn't know we were going to keep her in the clothes originally that they put her in.
Right.
So I was like, well, is this the same night? And they're like, oh, it's the same night. So she should be wearing the same clothes. And I was like, oh, geez. I would have put her in something a little, like a funny T-shirt or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what if I do this? Where like when he flips her over in this one scene, he changes her costume so she looks kind of like an apprentice, the magician's helpers, because she's going to be, going this trick where she's going to be killed. And like, oh yeah, that's good. So I kind of nothing too horrible though. So I wanted something kind of just big and floofy, that look kind of unwieldy, so it looked kind of a little awkward,
Right.
but also a little classy. It was because it's supposed to be kind of fun. It's a joke. So I mean, there was just that, and then right now we're talking about going forward with there's an annual coming out in I think March. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do with the annual, if we're going to keep that in with the current thing. So I'm just waiting to hear back from them on that, if I have to do a cover for it or not.
Nice.
They need it Friday, so I need to know. If we do the one way that I was doing, we won't need a new cover for it. We just use one of the covers that we already have that we never wound up using initially, because they originally were going to do this Bumblebee arc was going to be the first arc.
Okay.
But they decided they wanted to kind of follow up on the Rebirth stuff. So we actually redid 12 pages of issue 1 after it was done, to change the story around to focus more on the Rebirth stuff.
Right.
But I don't think anybody knew it was going to be that successful and that big. So they decided to pull something we're going to do later. They pulled it forward, and then they pushed the Bumblebee arc back.
Okay.
So the next arc is the Bumblebee one. So
nice. And you mentioned obviously Aquaman being more tedious for you to draw. How do you sort of take these characters and make them your own while still making them, these recognizable DC characters? And sort of what's the difference between having to draw someone like Aquaman and drawing a speedster, like either you've drawn Bart Allen, Barry Allen, and Wally now, correct?
Both Wallies, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No. Well, I lucked out where they let me redesign almost all the costumes. So I got to design everybody but Nightwing.
Okay.
So I knew. So and I actually had some problems. Like Roy gave me a lot of problems. But I kind of was thinking, okay, what would I do if these guys were the Justice League?
Right.
What would be their Justice League costume that I would like to draw? So I kind of worked that way. And there was some stuff that I liked in the previous Aquaman costume that a lot of people hated, but I liked parts of it. It was different. It was new. So I pulled some of that stuff, and then some of the stuff that worked on Aquaman, some of the stuff I'd done in the backgrounds and stuff to kind of establish the look of that. I think they call it Sanskrit Station. It's this big giant thing I got to design, which was kind of like this weird coral colony kind of thing, but using Atlantean tech. So that was a lot of fun, which they destroyed, of course.
Right.
But apparently everybody else hated drawing it but me. I love drawing it because you didn't need to use a ruler. It was all angles and arches and stuff like that. It's freehand, all of it. It was great.
Nice.
So when I did Garth, I used some of that kind of feel to it. Donna Troy, I had worked on her before in Justice League of America with actually Dick Grayson when he was Batman. So I was familiar with the character, and so I wanted to kind of bring in some of that costume with the black and the silver, but with some of the red costume she had, which was Wonder Girl, kind of merged the kind of costumes. But then because her new costume was very complex and was very military looking,
right,
by way of Greece and Rome, and so I decided I wanted a little sleeker, a little more kind of from what I remember of the character. And we argued about the colors because originally they wanted to go with a Phoenician purple and a bronze, and it didn't quite work. The colors didn't quite work in the comics screen. It might have worked better in real life.
Right.
So we went back and forth with the colors, and we finally decided, let's just go with the black and the white and the silver, because those were her classic costume colors that we remember her from the last time we've really seen her. And then I did 3 or 4 Wally designs. And Roy's was basically, I put them in a hood. I was like, I'm going to make green arrows, paint them red. What would I do with the green arrow costume? But they didn't want the hood, so they wanted the hat. They really liked the hat. I don't know why they liked the hat so much, but I gave them goggles so we can have things inside the goggles if we ever wanted to do some tech things. So we can switch to the Predator, who's got different heat vision and stuff like that, and the goggles, he's got add some extra tech to them, as opposed to just some, a domino mask. And then But he does still have the hood. There's this rim he has around his neck that actually has the hood folded into it. I got that from just regular jacket that they have, like rain hoods that you can pull out.
Yeah.
And then we did Bumblebee's costume was kind of fun. It was interesting because I looked up about her stuff about her character, and I got it was like tech based. It was all tech based. But we're not actually doing it's some tech based in the comic, but some of it's also she also has metahuman abilities, so she's kind of both going forward from issue 8. So I kind of teched her costume up a little bit because she usually just wear like a t-shirt or something simple, but it looked like the bees. And so I actually toned it down. It had more striping and stuff on it, more tech stuff on it. But I think Alex, the editor, was worried that other people wouldn't be able to draw it. So
right.
I do go overboard with the design sometimes. But I like to do that. I mean, because I figured I could push a little bit further on some of the designs because Wally's was fairly simple, and Nightwing's is fairly simple. And Lilith's is actually really simple, and that's actually kind of she wasn't originally on the original group. They were going to bring this other character, and then they decided they're going to either wait on him or use it for something else. So there's a design we did that we didn't get to use, and they decided they're going to bring Lilith on the team. And so originally she was going to be like kind of being mentored by Dick Grayson, so she was going to be more of a Batman kind of. Oh, of course, stop texting me, Norm. I told him that I was going to do a podcast, so he said, of course he texted me. She was supposed to be like more of a sidekick, more of a Batman-esque, vigilante kind of character. She's learning martial arts and stuff from Nightwing. And then I think they had a big meeting with Jeff Johns, and Jeff wanted to go with more of a classic look. So we'd actually had the first cover, stuff, images drawn and colored and inked. And then it was supposed to be like the day before everything was supposed to go, to press for the direct currents thing that they were doing. And it's like 5 or 6 o'clock at night. I get a call from the editor, Alex, and he's like, Jeff doesn't like the design. He wants you to try something else. And I was like, can we just put a cape on her? Like, we don't have time. And so I put a cape on it. I was like, I didn't like it, and I was trapped. And so I kind of went and looked up her old costume because she just had this kind of weird cloak thing. It was this huge hulking thing over her.
Right.
And you totally lost the character inside of it. And I was like, well, geez. I wanted to make the character because she has green was her color, and I was thinking of like those Scooby-Doo kind of ghosts.
Right.
Like they have like the green one, which is kind of fluorescent green.
Yeah.
Phosphorescent green. And I was like, I really liked that, and so I was working on. And I was like, you know what? And I got something popped in my head, and I drew it down real quick and sent it off. Like, yeah, let's go with that. And so it's kind of like a satanic nun. Kind of the best way to describe it.
Right.
Sort of because her name was Omen, so she's kind of I try to give it this kind of feel, like this kind of spookiness to her. So it's like just trying to get all the costume designs to kind of work with the modern audience, but pull stuff from the old costumes, and so the people will remember. That's like a key thing. You can't. Some of the people I work with, especially on the new Teen Titans, New 52 Teen Titans, they really wanted to push things forward, and I was kind of worried that we were pushing too far.
Right.
And it did backlash. Some people didn't like it. The designs were a little too far forward. A lot of the New 52 were like that, and people weren't as excited about that stuff because I think the best designs when you redesign these characters is to kind of pull something from the old. But there's a lot of collaboration, and there's a lot of you kind of have to pick and choose. And final approval, of course, is by DC and editorial. So
right,
you don't always get what you want. But that was actually my second favorite Wally costume that we actually picked. I had another costume. That's actually my avatar on Twitter. That's my favorite costume. I did a design for another Wally picture I had done years ago with Scott Lobdell.
Okay.
And I actually based the Future Flash design that we did in the Flash on kind of a version of that. I thought it was kind of different. Like the whole thing when he come with new costumes for me, especially when going forward now, and TVs and the movies and stuff coming up, is they add things that sometimes the comic book people don't think about because they're kind of the comic people have to draw this stuff over and over again, so they don't make things as complicated, or they might not try to make the leaps that they do in TVs or movies because it's going to be harder to draw,
right.
Or they kind of try to keep it a little more simple and then of course you have the comic fans who really like the classic stuff and they don't want to change anything. And that's some of the comic artists and creators are like that too. So it's huge balance you got to kind of have to achieve when you do these designs. And I think they came up with a pretty good balance. I was pretty happy with everything. The Wally's colors were kind of interesting because originally we were going to go with red and gray
Okay.
and gold. And someone's like, got someone else's colors from a Marvel character. And I was like, you're right. Maybe we should change these. So we did like 5 different versions. And then we did like a 2-tone red and with gold. And then they're like, okay, we want to go with this. And I was like, there's too much red on the costume. There's not enough gold. The gold, since it's a warm color, it doesn't separate things enough. When I did the DCU Flash design, I did 2-tone red, but I gave him like a lot of thick gold bands on there to kind of break up the reds.
Okay.
So my idea was to make it silver and to make the bands a little thicker. So I had to kind of go back in and manipulate things a little bit to make it. So like, well, what do you want the custom? So what changes do you want to make? Because I talked to Jim Lee about this, and I think it's just minor things, just making the bands that we have there thicker, and then adding a couple little lines here and there to kind of break up the reds a little bit. And so I did that real quick and sent off. And like, okay, yeah, let's go with that. So
right, and the latest issue you guys have out is Titans number 5 right now, and that issue is Wally's last run. So obviously, Wally is a prominent character in this issue. So we have a lot of pages where you get these large size drawings of Wally, and I think, I think the simplicity of Wally's costume is really great, and it's definitely one of my favorite Flash costumes I've seen in a while.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
What I'm curious about is, how do you go about drawing his speed and, the Speed Force with all of the, kind of lightning and everything trailing him because of how fast he is? Is that something you kind of incorporate? Because in this issue, it's clear that it's kind of like coming off of those silver bands, and it's bright and everything. And obviously you draw, you don't color. So it's definitely a team effort to sort of bring this Wally to life.
Oh, definitely. My anchor and my colorist actually help out a lot. Andrew Dollhouse, Norm Ratman. But Andrew really pulls a lot of the colors. I work with him really closely on the designs and everything too, just to kind of get his feel.
Yeah.
What he would do with it. But yeah, since we worked on the Flash together, so we've been working in we had Bart. We had speedsters for a while.
Yeah.
So we're really used to drawing the speedsters and working on them. This one we had it all colored, and we decided there wasn't quite enough oomph on some of the pages. So Alex was like, well, what if we do some sort of making more glowy? And I was like, oh, that's going to be because that's like recoloring like half the book.
Right.
Wally's. I was like, well, what if we just kind of do that kind of Green Lantern effect coming off of his emblem? So as it gets closer and closer towards the end of what happens, it starts getting brighter and brighter. So it looks like he's pulling more Speed Force, but it's not the electrical stuff. It's more of an energy kind of feel to it, as opposed to the lightning that you usually see with the Flashes. And I think that worked out pretty good. It was kind of a quick fix, but I think it helped add to the impact of the final reveal of what happened. I don't want to spoil it for anybody if they haven't read it, because they get mad. They get mad if you spoil stuff.
Right. And I mean, Wally's last run is clearly right on the cover, so don't blame me for that one.
And don't look at the cover to 8 then if you don't want to know what happened. Or the cover to 7.
True. So my next question is, when you get the script from Dan, is it a full script, or does he sort of let you take your own direction on some things, and it's more of he gives you sort of plot lines and you work from there, or do you just get a full script up front?
He gives me a full script, and I like having that so I can do the character expressions and stuff to kind of match what they're saying, especially if there's a lot of dialogue. But he generally will say like page wide, and then shot of Wally running, and then I'll decide how page wide it is, because I don't like it. I actually hate drawing regular standard panels now. It's cue all the panels. So I'll, but then occasionally I'll say like big panel. But if he just has page 5 panels on the page, I'll decide which one is the biggest. I think which has the most impact.
Right.
But since he knows more of the Titans mythology, although he has really learned a lot about the Wally stuff. was really surprised because he wasn't that familiar with the character when he first started working on the book, and Jeff sent him a bunch of stuff to read. And like the scripts I got getting, I was like, oh, it's like reading like my favorite Wally story.
Right.
It was so great. So like I got the script for issue 4, and I was really excited about that. And then like I got the script for issue 5 like 2 days later, and I was like, oh man, I had to draw all of issue 4 to get to issue 5 because I really wanted to draw issue 5 because that's like that's like it's basically just Wally's book on that, and that it's his story on this. It's basically, as I talked to Dan DiDio and Bob Harris about it, I was like, this is the first time I've drawn this many running shots in one issue. Even drawing the Flash for 2 years, I never drew this many running shots in one issue as I did in that one issue of Titans. Because it's just Wally running, full out, and I was like, I'm running out of poses after like 6 poses. You usually have like 5 or 6 good poses that you can go to, and I was like running out of them. Like, crap, I got to come for the new pose for this. I got to come for the new pose for this one. When you do the running, as soon as you plant that one leg in front of him on the ground, it slows everything down.
Yeah.
So if you'll know, it's going back and looking through like a lot of the Flash issues and a lot of the stuff that they've seen, from going back to like since Barry is originally created in Jay. There's a lot of more side shots because if you do a straight on shot and you plant that first leg, it slows everything down.
Right.
There's a couple ways of getting around it, and you really have to like push the perspective to do it. So like I try to save that for because I'll try it like 4 or 5 times and I won't get it. So I remember trying it in the Flash. Tried to do it like 5 or 6 different times, and I would wind up scrapping the page and going with something else. And like I finally managed to get it on like one page in like issue like 45 or something.
Yeah.
I think finally, after like 10 issues, I finally managed to get it. But it's so coming up with all the running and stuff is you think it would get monotonous after a while, but actually I still really like doing it. So
yeah, and with these first 5 issues, Kadabra is the main villain here, and he sort of sends his team of clones to fight the Titans. When you first got that story, was that immediately something like you instantly thought it was going to be a great Wally West story?
No, because as I said, that we originally the first 5 were going to be the original bad guys in the original story arc,
right?
And they had me redraw all the 12 pages. Like, oh, we're gonna go with who got rid of Wally, and I was like, okay, who is it? And they go, Abracadabra, and I was like, I've heard that name before. It's a really old name, and I like Googled them, and I was like, oh, geez, it's that guy with the mustache. And so they wanted me to do a design, and so we had like 2 weeks to like redo these 12 pages, and I had to do the design for Kadabra, and we were like running. So it was like 2 weeks before the book was due.
Right.
So we were all like, because I penciled the first issue. It was already almost all inked, starting to be colored, and then I was like waited a week to get the new script. So we were like right on the edge.
Yeah.
To get this thing out, and so I was like, I need to do this design, and like, well, we don't change too much on him. And so I was like, geez, this design is so old. I was like, what can I do with it? And I just kind of flashed on like the old villains, like the ones who they capture the woman and put them on the train tracks. And I decided to like take what was there and go bigger with it. So I gave him the ridiculous mustache and the ridiculous beard thing.
Right.
I wanted him to be, just kind of completely like over the top kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so that was fun. But then they like the second issue, I got the script, and they wanted the cover, and they wanted these puppets. So make the Titans as puppets. And now there's an old Flash comic which has Abracadabra turning the Flash into a puppet.
Okay.
I've seen this, but I didn't make the connection that with the puppets from this and the puppets from that are making the Titans puppets. And I started drawing the cover, and I was like, these puppets just aren't working for me. And like I went outside for a minute and just not clear my head. And I had the Flash. I was like, wait a second, what's her cover with the Flash getting turned as a puppet? Was that Abracadabra who did that? And I ran in the house and I Googled it real quick, and it was. I was like, oh, sweet. So I used that as the reference to the puppets. And I was actually worried I was going to have to draw the puppets.
Right.
Now they're fast to draw, but I was kind of worried. But then they like, no, they want them to look like the Titans, and I was like, oh, so I get to draw the original Teen Titans fighting the new Titans. I was like, that's really kind of cool. And then getting to do Wally, you guys are two Wallies, and I get to kind of make one kind of a little more crazy like he was when he was a kid.
Yeah.
That was fun. So I mean, and getting it just kind of going back and forth, because even like in issue 6, there's a couple flashbacks from when they were the Teen Titans. So like I have to remember now I have to remember like 12 costumes
Right.
as opposed to just the 6. So it's then there's some more. There's shot in issue 8 and some scenes from when they were the Teen Titans with the old costumes. And Malcolm's going to be in that Bumblebee's husband for in his old costume for a few pages too. So I was like, another costume I got to remember, and then now I got to bring in the Fearsome Five, and we got Bumblebee's costumes. Oh, jeez, it takes a while to remember the costumes. I still remember talking to Ethan Van Sciver, and he's like, "Have you learned where all those damn lines go in that Flash costume yet?" And I was like, "Yeah, it took like 3 issues to do, but I finally got it."
Yeah. So this obviously sort of wraps up this first arc here, and like you mentioned, you already have the next one planned out since things got flip-flopped on you. So how
Yeah.
far ahead do you guys work? So issue 5 just came out. Are you guys done up through issue, 7 or 8, or do you sort of just take it issue by issue?
Issue 6 is going out. I think issue 6 goes out Wednesday.
Okay.
The last pages are being colored right now. Issue 7, they bumped the shipping schedule up 2 weeks, and I think so that one comes out the second week of January.
Okay.
And I think that one will have to be done next week. But we're not doing that one. We're just taking that one off because we would not have been able to do it. We've been under the gun since issue 1 because of the 12 pages. So we've been like running a few the last couple issues.
Right.
And we come back on issue 8, and then I think we have the Bumblebee arc. There's a small arc after that, and then after that, I think they're wanting to do something with Deathstroke.
Okay.
They've mentioned that before. I think that's when the Deathstroke thing will take place on issue 12 or 13.
Nice. And obviously, with the holidays, everything just kind of gets jumbled up anyway. So, we can.
Well, they Quebec closes for 2 weeks.
Right.
So all the books have to be done early.
Okay.
So it makes since our books it's the last week of December, it has to be done instead of being done like the first week of December. It has to be done like the very beginning of December instead of we normally have to like the 8th of the month. Since we're switching schedule now, I don't actually know when things are going to be due.
Right.
But pretty much all the books I've worked on have been last week books. Now they're switching to a second week book. I don't know what to do. I don't know when anything's going to be due yet. So I'm taking a little bit of time off to kind of recoup and recover from the the first 7 issues. So
yeah. And for you, when you're drawing the Titans, does it take you roughly the same amount of time for each page, or does it really just depend on how much you're packing into a page? Because I noticed with issue 5, you guys don't really have any sort of standard comic book looking pages. You have all of these angles that everything is at, and then you have these full pages of Wally, and it's sort of like, it's not split up into 6 nice little boxes for you. It's kind of all over the place, and maybe not a typical format that some people think of when they think comic books. And personally, I find it very enjoyable. I thought, issue 5 was a great one to read, and it was just visually stunning, especially with the story, putting it all together. So does it sort of depend on the time for you, whether you're doing just Wally on one full page, or you have 5, 6, 7 characters all on a page, how long it takes you for each one?
The more characters, the more time usually.
Okay.
Definitely. The pages will vary generally between like 4 hours for something relatively simple. Like a couple pages with like Linda and like some smoke.
Right.
And shows that those are pretty quick pages. Well, there's just a couple pages of people talking, mostly big head. Those are pretty quick pages too. So generally, kind of like weave those in and out. I try to do the more complicated pages first, so that I'm fresh drawing stuff. I'm not tired. I get to the big shots so that I can put as much energy into those pages as I think they should have.
Right.
The angles and stuff they don't really save any time. It's just for my own pleasure because it started it on Nightwing. There was a shot of Nightwing. He was like fighting someone in a helicopter. I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool if we kind of made like the panels with like the propeller blades because he's jumping through this helicopter. And when I was working on the Flash, I was like, oh, some of those pages need a little more oomph to them.
Right.
To make him look like he's running faster, to like he's pushing himself. And I was like, oh, well, I kind of remember doing that. And it was kind of fun. So I started playing with that on the Flash, and it's just kind of like I just got tired of drawing because it's like you draw the same grids and stuff, and it gets boring after a while. Like this way, I can kind of and then I can rearrange the page and make you your eye follow what I want, the actions that I want you to follow. I can force you strictly by laying the panels the way I lay them that you have to follow that direction. You have no other option when you're looking at these pages. Because someone had complained that sometimes, oh, it's too difficult to read this or it's too difficult to read that. I don't understand the storytelling. So I was like, I'm going to simplify this as much as I possibly can and make you follow this. So like some of these pages I have while he's zigzagging, I specifically have him zigzagging around the pages so he goes from one panel and starts on another panel and cuts it down. And so I use something called, what is it called? Tangents.
Okay.
And you can do a bad tangent or you can do good tangents. And I did one bad tangent in issue 5. I think it was issue 5. We had to move a mustache over slightly because it like blended into Abracadabra's other mustache. It's a weird loop. But I'll do that on the pages so that what would normally be would be a tangent. That pulls your eye over there. So then it pulls you to the next panel, and then that pulls you to the next spot that I want you to go to. And then it pulls you to the next spot I want you to go to. And it's kind of become second nature now. I don't even notice don't really put as much thought into it as I did initially to kind of do it, because it's automatic at this point. But I found it was a cool way to kind of make people move around the page the way I want them to move around the page. The more people there, the more difficult it makes it because sometimes Dan will have someone talking, and I'll have to move characters around. I'm doing the layouts so that I can have them talking in the correct order on the page. I did that in issue 5, issue 6 I just did. There was a shot, and I was going to have Nightwing next to one of the other characters, and but Roy talks first, so I had to put Roy over and move Nightwing over on the other side of the character.
Right.
Just to make sure it all kind of flowed right, because sometimes the dialogue doesn't work, especially with when you make the angle panels. It kind of messes up the dialogue every now and then, so I had to kind of be careful with that.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I'm sure Norm would probably like you to text him back at some point, but I have a couple more questions for you. Are you an artist who will sort of look at your work after it comes out, it's been printed up and everything, to see how it turns out? Or are you someone who prefers not to sort of see your own work? Because I know for myself doing podcasts, it took me forever to get used to hearing my own voice when I would go back and edit podcasts, and I hated it so much. And I know there are actors and actresses who won't watch their shows.
I get that.
Yeah.
I don't like looking at my old stuff. I see all the flaws.
Right.
So it's just like keep moving forward. What I'm doing next.
Yeah.
So when people bring me like some old stuff at shows, and they're like, "Oh, I love this issue," and I start looking through it, I'm like, "Oh, are you kidding me? This is terrible."
You're like, "This hurts. Take it away, please."
It does, yeah. Well, you can't say that. You have to be nice.
Right. Of course.
You're like, okay, yeah, no, thank you. I'm happy you like this stuff. Like, so I did this Backlash Spider-Man thing, and people were like, "Oh, you draw my favorite Spider-Man," and I was like, "Really?" Because you know what? I'm just looking at that, and I'm just seeing all the flaws and everything I did wrong drawing Spider-Man. It drives me up the wall. So it's like someone's like, "Oh, I loved your thing when you did Fantastic Four," and I was like, "Really?" Because I hated the thing. I could never get that character. I still can't draw that character right. Like he's like my nemesis of all the characters. He's like the one that I cannot get anything that looks remotely correct to me. So there's a bit of cartooniness you got to get to him, and I just didn't work for me.
Yeah, and I have made very few attempts to draw some superhero characters here and there, and I am by no means an artist at all, so it's like I would spend all of this time drawing something, and then I would look at it and be like, nope, that's not how it goes.
Yeah, well, That's what happened when I did these sketch Saturday thing. And so I go in like Friday night. I go in cold. I don't have any idea really what I'm going to draw, and I just start drawing. And I'll just kind of usually I'll do like 4 or 5 tries before I get something that I actually like, and just start laying things out. I'm like, yeah, let me try this. And then I remember trying to do the thing like 4 or 5 times, and it's just like throwing the page away. Oh, no,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. And then every now and then you settle on something simple. I was like, oh, geez, well, I got like an hour and a half to do this. Well, you're getting Green Lantern.
Yeah. And did you have any sort of official drawing lessons, drawing classes, or anything like that that really got you into drawing? Or was it sort of just something you started doing and you stuck with it and here you are?
Yeah. Well, I lived in Pennsylvania and up in the mountains, and it gets a lot of snow in the wintertime. So for like 4 or 5 months out of the year, you can't go out there and do anything.
Right.
So we would draw. My dad would bring home these giant reams of computer paper, and we would just draw all winter. And so I've always drawn stuff, and I didn't get into comics until I was like 13. A friend of mine in high school, uh, I had 2 study halls in my freshman year of high school, and I finished all my homework, and I turn around because he was behind me, and I was like, dude, I need something to draw. And here, draw this. He hands me Classic X-Men #1 cover with Art Adams drawing the X-Men on it, and I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And so I just started trying to draw Wolverine from the cover, and then that just kind of that hooked me. And then he's a huge comic fan, so he handed me some bunch of X-Men stuff to read, and I just kind of got hooked on it. And it's like I knew like a month after I started reading these comics that that's what I wanted to do. But I wanted to be an artist of something. I didn't know what. But it wasn't until I started doing the comics that kind of clicked.
Right.
So from that point on, when I was 13, till I finally got into comics at 20, I pretty much dedicated everything that I did for drawing for comics. So even when I had, I had 2 art classes, because when we still had art classes in high school, I had 2 art classes, and one of them was a regular art class, and the other one was a sculpture class. So I'd do the sculpture part really quick, and then I'd just sit around and draw. And my teacher would just let me draw because he was an artist himself, and he realized, let him do what he wants to do. He's doing it on his own. He's doing it, he's getting his work done, but he's also doing this stuff. So just encourage him to do this stuff. So
yeah.
And then I went to 2 years of college, but it was basically mostly stuff I'd already known.
Okay.
It wasn't anything to do with comics really. They didn't really have any really comic book kind of classes at the time. There was the Cubert School, and I think like 1 or 2 other things here and there. But I didn't want to drive or go cross country to go for a comic class.
Right. Well, my final question for you then is, do you have a favorite issue of Titans so far, or do you sort of not worry about favorite issues or anything and you just keep going forward?
Well, the ones that we've done, issue 5 is probably my favorite. I got to draw the Wally stuff that I always wanted to draw.
Okay.
I'm a huge Wally fan.
Right.
He's my favorite character. And to finally get to draw him running and doing his Flash stuff was like a great thing to do. So like you kind of have to push that aside, because I remember drawing when you first started working in DC. Here's the first time you're going to draw Batman. Here's the first time you're drawing Shazam. Here's the first time you're drawing Superman. Or first time you're drawing Wonder Woman. And these are these iconic characters, and you want to do a good job on them. And so you kind of overthink some of it, and it may be not. You really want to do a good job on it. You want to impress people, and you want people to like it, so that you'll be asked to do more of it.
Yeah.
So there's an extra added pressure. Now it's not quite as much because we established at DC. But when I first started working there, yeah, it was really scary, kind of working on some of these characters.
I imagine.
I had drawn Superman like once or twice before I started working. That's it. And then I did this book, and there was like this flashback scene with the Justice League. So I had drawn Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Flash, Aquaman, all these characters I've never actually drawn really in comics before on this one page. I was like, oh crap! And the first thing I did, and the first time I did it, it was fine. It just didn't there was no oomph to it, and so I scrapped it. And even though we were running behind, I took the time to actually redo it to kind of make it a little more impressive, to kind of impress the editor so they get more work. So working on time and doing something, doing a good job is always helpful to get more work.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has definitely been a fun episode to do. And, best of
No
luck
problem.
hitting those deadlines in the future. Hopefully you
Yes,
find
thank
out
you.
when they're due soon.
Yeah, I got a week off, so I'll have to start drawing today because if I don't draw for too long, my hands start forgetting how to work properly. And I don't take like 2 or 3 days to get back into drawing.
Yeah.
I have to start now.
Awesome. And to our listeners, as always, we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for listening.